At the beginning of my sim racing journey, this was my holy grail of wheels. Back when I got my first setup, I always wanted to get this wheel. And actually it was the older version of this, the carbon version, didn't have quite as much going on. And then this one came out, which looked even cooler and of course fits my color scheme. But yeah, I always loved it, wanted to have it. That was a couple years ago now, and now I've had it for quite a bit of time, so I figured I'd go over my thoughts about it. Welcome to the Aero Veloce channel. My name is Seth, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Fanatec Formula V2.5 Xbox compatible edition with also the advanced paddle module that I upgraded the wheel with. I have the most amount of sim hours with this wheel. This was definitely my main wheel for a long period of time. And honestly, I still love it. It's everything you would need and more, other than for maybe like drifting and rally cars. It's got plenty of buttons, plenty of features, and it looks awesome. So let's just go over the wheel real quick. With the build, we got a carbon front plate, plastic back, plastic handle grips wrapped in Alcantara, plenty of buttons, which feel like the same buttons on pretty much all Fanatec wheels. They're very clicky and tactile, but they don't necessarily feel premium in any way. You can also put the button caps on top if you want to have the different symbols. I kind of like how it looks just nice and clean, plain. There is a ton of functionality here. You have the rotary encoders, you have these up and down toggle switches, then you have these encoders here that you can bind to whatever you want. The encoders here are extremely snappy, extremely tactile. You're not really gonna make many mistakes hitting the right one. They are numbered 1 through 12, and you can either have it in a regular encoder mode where it's just up and down, changes the, let's say, traction control, just right goes up, left goes down, or you can have it set to a constant where you actually assign traction control 5 to traction control 5 in the game. So whenever it's set to whatever number, it'll automatically change the in-game car to that exact number. The center one is only used for changing the functionality of these clutch paddles. So if you want to use them as double clutch, that's the standard mode, which is A. You also have B, C, and D, which you can change to things like throttle and brake if maybe you are disabled, and a couple of other functionalities for that too. You also have the analog stick here that you can use as mouse emulation and also clicks. Then you have the 7-way funky switch on this side, up, down, left, right, twist, click, and then plenty of buttons that are all relatively easy to reach, which makes, hitting stuff on the fly very easy. I don't really have any problems hitting most of these buttons. Maybe these inner ones can be a little bit of a stretch, and then obviously the bottom ones you'd have to take your hands off most of the way to get to them. The wheel comes in at $400 with the traditional shifter paddles. That would just be the left and right, no upper and no clutch paddles. If you want to do the advanced podium module add-on, I think it's like an extra $180 unless you get some type of bundle, which honestly, I don't do a lot of formula racing, so the clutch paddles, I hardly ever use them. So if you plan on buying that, I would make sure you know you need it. For $400, I think the build quality is pretty good. The thing's pretty rigid. The carbon plate's pretty strong. There is quite a bit of plastic on it, but I mean, I think that's kind of to be expected. I think my only real complaint with the build quality is the plastic hand grips can ever so slightly creak at times, just like a tiny bit. It's not a lot, but when it does happen, it's kind of annoying, I guess. But other than that, you're not really going to notice any flex other than the Fanatec quick release, which even then when you're driving, are you really going to be paying attention to that either? Probably not. One thing I just noticed right now is actually I have a crack in the back of the housing. Let's see, where is it? Right up there, little crack there. Honestly, I don't know how that happened. I don't think that's any fault of the wheel. Wheel probably got bumped somewhere, but that is a downside. Over a long period of time, is it gonna be able to withstand the abuse? I put this thing through a lot of abuse, and that's more aesthetic than anything. And I still think this has a lot of abuse to take. One of the only things I think I wish was different with this wheel is that it was just a little bit wider. This is one of the most narrow wheels out there. I think it's 270 millimeters, maybe 275. It's small.
That's what she said.
Now I just get used to it and it's fine, but when you switch between other wheels and like you switch to like a 320 millimeter like round wheel, it's like, whoa, this thing is huge. Or vice versa, you switch from that to this and you're like, wow, this is like a kid's steering wheel. So yeah, I think getting to like 280, maybe 290, somewhere in that range might have been a little bit more comfortable for more people, especially since the sim racing community. I mean, I've looked at my demographics. We're old as hell. We're not little kids anymore, so I think we could use bigger steering wheels. One thing I do want to mention about the size though is that because it's so small and lightweight, is that it ends up feeling a lot more snappy and less dampened than a bigger wheel might feel. Some might see that as a benefit, some might see that as potentially a downside. But other than that, the grips do feel pretty good in the hands. You know, I never really had a discomfort with this wheel. I did build calluses on the side of my thumbs quite a bit, just from my inner thumb, I guess, rubbing against the inner grip here. I don't know if that is a trait of the shape of this wheel or just something that happens in sim racing in general. This is the Xbox compatible version, so that means it comes with the red accents. They do have the one that's non-Xbox compatible with the white accents and leather grips instead, which if you don't wear gloves or if you just don't want to deal with wearing Alcantara that kind of looks matted like that over time, which you can clean, but it is a pain in the butt, then I would probably recommend that one. Wait, I lied. There's actually one more thing that I wish would be changed on this wheel, and if you've seen a lot of reviews, it's talked about by everybody. It's these thumb encoders right here. They're just way too loose, way too easy to spin. Sometimes when I'm making a quick reaction, my thumb accidentally slips and hits one of the encoders and changes my traction control or ABS, and that can be really annoying. By default, the wheel comes with these single magnetic shifters, and like I said, I upgraded it to the advanced paddle module. Either way, the actual shift feel feels the same, and that's one of the best things I think about Fanatec wheels is how good their magnetic shifters feel. They're really snappy and tactile while also not being extremely loud because they do have little dampeners, but I don't think the dampeners necessarily ruin the feel either. Like all Fanatec wheels, it has the little OLED screen, which is useful for, you know, adjusting your settings with the tuning menu on the fly. You could also get like your RPM or your gear shift in there. Personally, I find the screen to be a little bit too small to be that useful when actually driving. Perhaps if you're really committed to a formula seating position where the steering wheel is right in front of your face, then as a gear shift, it might be more useful there. When the wheel's a little bit lower in a more GT position, I find the screen is just too small for quick glances, and you're much better off just using the in-game car dash or something like a DDU. The rev lights are great though. I love the rev lights on here. You even have like the 3 side ones that can go off for like traction control or spotter or when ABS is kicking in, and then your RPM lights up here. Those are great. They're nice and bright. They look cool. And they can be very helpful depending on how your sim is set up, especially, once again, if you're more committed to a formula seating position. Would I still recommend this wheel in 2023? Well, if you are committed to a Fanatec setup, I would probably say yeah. If I was to only have one wheel for my Fanatec setup and I only cared about, let's say, GT3 and formula cars, then this is probably the only wheel that I would care to have. It does look awesome. It's got all the functionality you would ever need and probably more. It gets the job done. I mean, it turns a car and that's all you really need, right? I hope this video helps you out. If you enjoyed it, as always, leave a like, subscribe for more sim racing, car, and racing content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.